Think about the last time someone complimented you. Really think about it. What did you feel in the moment? A brief warmth, maybe. A small lift in your mood. And then, how quickly did it fade? Now think about something different. Think about the last time someone said something to you that made you feel genuinely understood. Not praised, not flattered. Understood, seen, recognized for something real. How long did that stay with you? There is a difference between those two experiences, a significant one. And a 17th century Spanish Jesuit philosopher named Balthasar Gracian understood that difference more precisely than almost anyone who has ever written about human nature. His work influenced Napoleon. It influenced Schopenhauer, who called it the most useful book ever written. It influenced Nietzsche. And today it is about to change how you think about every relationship in your life. First, who was Balthasar Gracian? Gracian was born in Spain in 1601. He was a Jesuit priest, a writer, and one of the most astute observers of human psychology who has ever lived. He did not write abstract philosophy. He wrote practical wisdom, compressed, precise observations about how people actually behave, not how they claim to behave, about what actually moves people, not what they say moves them. His most famous work, The Art of Worldly Wisdom, contains 300 maxims. Each one is a concentrated observation about human nature, power, relationships, and the psychology of influence. He was not cynical. He was accurate. And the distinction matters. Today, I am focusing on one specific principle from his work. The principle that underlies one of the most powerful things you can do in any human relationship. And almost nobody does it. Here is the problem with praise. When you meet someone and immediately compliment them, you are doing what everyone does. You are performing a social ritual that the other person has experienced hundreds of times. Their brain already knows the script. It receives the compliment, produces a small positive response, and files it under nice person, standard interaction. Gracian wrote, "Do not praise people immediately upon meeting them. Praise given too quickly costs nothing and therefore means nothing." This is not a cynical observation. It is a psychological one. The value of anything, including recognition, is determined by its scarcity and its specificity. When something is given freely to everyone, it carries no weight. When something is given precisely, specifically, and only when genuinely earned, it carries tremendous weight. Most people praise freely, which means most praise is worthless. Here is what works instead. Gracian's principle is not about withholding kindness. It is about replacing cheap recognition with something far more valuable, sincere, specific, earned recognition. The difference is this. A compliment says, "You are good." It is general. It could be said to anyone. Sincere recognition says, "I noticed this specific thing about you that most people miss, and I want you to know that I see it." That is not a small difference. That is the difference between a social pleasantry and a moment that a person remembers for years. Gracian wrote, "The greatest gift you can give another person is to make them feel that what they uniquely are has been truly seen. Not what they have done, not what they look like, what they uniquely are. The quality of mind that only comes out in specific situations. The way they handle difficulty that most people never notice. The thing they value that is not visible unless you are paying close attention." Why does this work? Because every human being walks through the world with a private belief about their own potential, a sense of who they could be, what they are capable of, what they genuinely offer, that they almost never hear reflected back to them. Most interactions stay on the surface. Most people respond to what is visible and easy to see, the achievement, the appearance, the obvious skill. The deeper thing, the quality of character, the specific intelligence, the particular way a person sees the world, goes unrecognized. Not because it is not there, because most people are not paying close enough attention to see it. When you see that thing and name it, you give the person something they rarely receive, genuine recognition. The experience of being actually known, not just socially acknowledged. Gracian understood that this is one of the rarest and most powerful gifts available in any relationship, and that the person who gives it consistently becomes, over time, someone that others trust, respect, and want to be around. Why most people never do this? Because it requires something that is in very short supply in most people's lives: genuine attention. To give sincere recognition, you must first genuinely observe. You must notice things that are not immediately obvious. You must be present enough, curious enough, and interested enough in another person to see past the surface presentation to what is actually there. Most people are not doing that. They are thinking about what they are going to say next. They are managing the impression they are making. They are half present at best. Gracian wrote, "The person who truly listens and truly observes will always have more influence than the person who speaks most cleverly. Influence is not built through performance. It is built through attention, through making another person feel, genuinely, that they have been seen." 3 practical situations where this applies today. Situation 1. A colleague who handled a difficult conversation well. Most people would say, "Good job in that meeting." That is praise, cheap and general. Gracian's approach: "I noticed how you stayed calm when the conversation turned difficult." That kind of composure under pressure is rare, and it changed the outcome of the whole room. That is specific. That is observed. That is something the person will remember because it tells them you were actually watching. Situation 2. A friend going through a hard period. Most people would say, "You are so strong." That is well-intentioned but generic. The person has heard it many times. Gracian's approach: "I have watched you handle this with a kind of quiet dignity that I genuinely respect." Most people in your situation would have responded very differently. The way you are doing this says something specific about who you are. You are not praising their strength in general. You are observing a specific quality in action, in a specific situation, and naming it precisely. Situation 3. Someone you are meeting for the first time. Most people compliment immediately, too quickly, before they have earned the right to give recognition. Gracian's approach is patience. Listen first. Observe. And when you have actually seen something worth recognizing, say it. Once. Specifically. Without embellishment. The timing matters as much as the content. Recognition that arrives after genuine observation carries far more weight than recognition that arrives before you have had time to observe anything. The one sentence that changes everything. Gracian distilled his thinking on human relationships into many principles. But this one sits underneath almost all of them. People do not primarily want to be liked. They want to be understood. Liking is easy. It costs nothing. Strangers like each other based on appearance and surface interaction. Being understood is rare. It requires another person to actually pay attention, to actually care about what is specific and unique about you, to see past the presentation to the person underneath. The individual who makes another person feel genuinely understood, without manipulation, without agenda, simply through honest attention and precise recognition. That individual builds a kind of loyalty and trust that no social performance can produce. Gracian saw this operating throughout human relationships across every level of society, between friends, between rivals, between leaders and those they led. The principle did not change based on context. It worked because it responded to something constant in human nature, the deep desire to be genuinely seen. How to start today. One practice. Simple. Immediately available. Today. In the next conversation you have with someone you know, spend the first 5 minutes genuinely listening, not to what they are saying on the surface, to what they are revealing about how they think, what they value, what they are actually going through. Then, before the conversation ends, say one specific thing you noticed, not a compliment, an observation, something that tells them you are actually present and paying attention. Do not do this to gain influence. Do not do this to be liked. Do it because genuine attention is one of the rarest and most respectful things you can offer another person. Gracian wrote, "It is better to be esteemed by a few than praised by many. Esteem is earned through genuine recognition. Praise is collected through social performance. You already know which one lasts longer. If this gave you something useful, subscribe. Philosophy every week. No motivation, no fluff, just what actually holds up.